Hello there guys and welcome back, and this is connecting to this week's Witchling, which is Banishment. I'm going to read from the book this week and then we're going to discuss the card a little bit. I'm not convinced by the given description and we're going to sort of talk about it and talk as to why. So the Witchling is actually banishment. You have the power to banish negative energy and unwanted problems. Oleander, coriander shall wash away your pain. Oleander, salamander shall flush it down the drain. It's no fun to be struck with a cold case of negative energy. When this happens, something most certainly needs to be done about it. A banishment is a very good way to get rid of negative energy and unwanted problems, though they're not to be mistaken as curses or hexes. Banishing magic is helpful in matters for dealing with a difficult person or unwanted spirits. It's also helpful in getting rid of negative energy such as stress, fear, worry, and bad habits. Banishment spells encourage bad energy to turn into good energy, or to exit, allowing the situation to unfold naturally as quickly as possible. When performing your banishing spells, be clear in explaining yourself to the universe and what you need. Firstly, the description is trying to be benign as possible, concerned with being overly politically correct and not particularly helpful. I don't know if we can really encourage bad energy to be good. We can banish it, purify it, forcibly transform it. Our actions affect the energy, our will, our intent. We need to be directly involved with what we allow, particularly with regards to boundaries, whether they be personal boundaries or magical boundaries. I don't think that we can sort of encourage a bad energy to be good, like was suggested in the blurb. So, with that in mind, we're just going to talk about the card in front of us. Firstly, I was kind of saddened to see there was no black in it, and thinking about it, I don't think there is an awful lot of black, if any black, in any of the images. I don't think there is. And I guess the tone of the cards is to be a bit lighter, so I'm guessing, I'm just having a shuffle through to see if, no, there isn't. There's no black. It's all quite colour intensive. And black is obviously a good colour to really banish negative energy, so it seems a little bit odd that it's not been included whatsoever. I guess these cards sort of span for who they're meant to be for. They can be for younger people or older people, and if they're sort of aimed at younger people, there's a sort of correctness with not wanting to get a negative rap, I guess, and that's unfortunate because it kind of takes away from what's necessary for learning about the card, and you know that this association with the colour black was somehow negative, and that's a shame that they didn't try to overcome that either in the card itself or within the little blurby bit, because I don't think it covers it at all. I'm just going to plug the camera in 1 second. Apologies for that, but there we go. And so the colour coding within the card is actually purple and green. You can make arguments for this. You could argue that green is there to indicate perhaps one of the central causes of negative energy being directed at you, which is of course jealousy, the green eye, and that could be hinted at the colour green. However, the colour green here is both on her legs and on her hat, which is a little bit unfortunate given that her legs are going to be the part that's grounding her, and yet she's not grounded, she's on top of a box. And then the green on her hat, and that could be getting in the way of being connected to the divine if we take it to be associated with jealousy, which makes sense given where you want to be banishing. And perhaps it's talking here a little bit about banishment in a personal sense, to banish your own negative thought processes and clinging onto your own negative mindset with regards to the hat and what's not allowing you to ground properly with regards to the legs and the feet. The box is obviously a somewhat overt reference to Pandora's box. It can be sort of linked up with one's own inner self as well, allowing too much of the negativity out of one's inner self. I don't like the box analogy though for working with one's inner self, because that suggests that you should sort of clamp the lid down and not allow things out. I don't like that in terms of that image. I don't like this image overwhelmingly. It's a shame because on the surface of it, it's quite a nice picture. It's kind of pin-up-y image, which I like. But the imagery in this card for banishment doesn't work for me at all. So if we're thinking of it in terms of our own emotions that we need to sort through and work through and banish the negative energy that we ourselves generate, then the box image doesn't work for me whatsoever, because it has to be purified. You have to allow it to be felt and then banish it. It's not a case of suppressing it, which is what's happening here. And if we take the Pandora's box image, which we assume that's what this is, then the box was released, and with the negative things of the world being released, hope was released as well. So it was like the two things were released at the same time, and hope becomes a defining characteristic in the myth of mankind. So to keep it sealed and to keep it stood on top of it seems counterintuitive, counterproductive, and not very realistic. She's holding the broom out in front of her again, as sort of, we've talked about this in terms of protection magic in the other cards, and whilst it works for creating a personal boundary, not allowing things to get into you, again, I don't like the way the image sort of stamps down on the negativity that's happening, because first and foremost, she's holding the broom out in front of herself, and supposedly the negativity is coming from beneath. But I like the idea that negativity is beneath you. You shouldn't allow it to rule over you. That's something I do like about the card. But she's holding this broom out in front of her, and the negativity is beneath. Is it talking about simultaneously not allowing your own negative energy up into yourself whilst protecting yourself and personal boundaries? Possible. But in terms of banishment, I don't think I would have had the broom there personally, because that speaks more of a protective stance to me rather than a getting rid of stance. And whilst protection and banish work hand in hand with each other, they're not the same thing. And again, I don't think this card was overly informative in its message, particularly within the script. They even mentioned curses and hexes because of their fear of being associated with it, as if banishment was the same thing, which it's not. And if the card had gone into a bit more detail, had been a bit more out there, I think it might have driven the message home a little bit more than it did. She's looking over her shoulder. Again, get behind me. These things aren't important. It's kind of a cocky expression. It's beneath me, behind me, not worth me of my time. I can cope with it. It's not going to overwhelm me. The expression sort of suggests, which is fine. It works. Your own sense of self-empowerment helps with terms of banishing negative energy of all kinds. But to be honest, I think they should have gone one of two ways. They should have just gone full out witchy, black, banishing, or they should have just gone for a sense of personal empowerment, of serenity, because this whole cocky aggressive feel kind of works against the whole message of what I think the banishment is about. If things aren't allowed to get to you, and you banish effectively and you protect effectively, then they're not going to cause a reaction out of you whatsoever. They're not going to rile you. You're not going to need to be all full of your own power and it don't touch me none. You don't need to be like that, because it doesn't affect you enough for you to put that out there. You don't need to sort of big up your own sense of power in terms of banishment. It's a shame, because the image by itself is like a pretty image. I quite like it. I quite like the pin-uppiness. I like the, you know, the skirt is full and balanced, and she's obviously balanced and her legs are crossed and she doesn't allow any negativity in. That's fine, but overwhelmingly I think it's a wrong choice for banishment. It's a shame. But we'll see how we get on with the card this week. Many blessings.